In an effort to bond with my favorite sociology professor in graduate school, I went to her office unannounced, and I asked her an overly complicated and tedious question, hoping that it would lead to a meaningful conversation between professor and student. Her response to me was, "Life is a painful journey, Amanda." And then she just went back to work. And although I was dismissed entirely, her words stuck with me, because it's true. Many people experience an adversity in life, but rarely do any of us get through this experience unscathed. It's a matter of how we deal with it when it comes our way that seems to make the difference. And adversity, it is nothing new. What's new is that Americans are increasingly disconnected and desensitized to our own pain and to the pain of others. Why wouldn't we be? We wake up every day and we work more and play less. We're stressed, we're sick, we're tired, and we're lonely. We wake up and then we're bombarded with more bad news. And so we tune out. We tune out because we need to. We tune out for self-preservation. And while self-care is good, I think we should resist the urge to tune out too much, because there are consequences for complacency. This past year or two has been a wake-up call for me. As part of a research project that I've been working on, I've been collecting the life stories of my students. And this is what they shared with me. This is what they've been through and what they're currently going through right now. And so what started as a little side project of mine became a powerful reminder that I need to step outside of my own bubble of complacency and privilege and do more, because people need me to. In fact, I think that we all could benefit from leaning back into our basic social obligation to care for others more and to let others care for us when we're in need. Because this culture of competition and individualism, where we're socialized from birth to believe that we're all in it on our own, it's just not working out for everyone. We need a shift. We need to shift from the me to the we, and I think that one way to do so is to bring the virtue of humility into the conversation. Now, humility just involves taking a stance that is other-oriented rather than self-focused, and it also involves having an accurate view of oneself, including an awareness of your strengths and weaknesses. It's not a concept that many people want to actively embrace, though, because it conjures images of saints and nuns and otherwise deferential figures, and most people just don't want to live that way. Not me. That doesn't sound like fun. But being humble doesn't require you to be unnecessarily meek or deferential, nor does it require you to negate your own accomplishments. In fact, those who live with a worldview of humility strive to lift others up rather than put them down. And I love that. I love that idea. Who doesn't want to be around others whom you know to have your best interests at heart? So I want to talk about 4 commonalities. That is, 4 habits of those with high levels of humility. I have not mastered these habits of humility that I speak of. These are from the research, and I also happen to be very fortunate in life in that I have a group of people around me who are very kind and giving, and whom I've learned a lot from over the years. The first is highly humble people tend to be very active listeners, right? You know these people when you see them. They make eye contact when you're speaking with them, they tune in, and you can tell that they're actively trying to learn something from within your interaction. They're a rare breed these days. They also have simple things that are the reason that people like this are such successful leaders is because they take the value of feedback very seriously. They really value the diversification of ideas. And it's also why those in romantic relationships tend to enjoy longer lasting and more satisfying experiences, because there is value in knowing that the person whom you're with is really listening to and trying to understand more of who you are. All humans crave the desire to really be known. And there's a lot to be said for taking the time to do so. Secondly is offer. Those who live with high levels of humility, they help others. They do it and they help whenever they can. And they help without the expectation of receiving something in return. Now, simple things like stop smiling, right, and empathy and encouragement can go a long way. I know this. I have benefited my life many times by the empathy and encouragement of others. One time it changed the entire trajectory of my life. I had an unusual upbringing. My mother had me when she was 15 years old and just in the 8th grade. And, she did her best to support me and my siblings as a single mother. But things were hard. We didn't have a lot of money, we moved around a lot, and I struggled. I struggled socially and academically. And then this man came along. He was the high school football coach and also my math teacher. Right? And I was failing my high school algebra class just weeks before I was supposed to graduate. And then he pulled me aside one day and he told me when to talk to me. And I was incredibly scared of what he was going to say because I knew I wasn't passing his class, and I was very aware of what that meant for my future. It meant that I was going to end up just like everyone else said I would, a high school dropout, just like my mother. But when we met, he simply said, "Howerton, you're not passing my class." And I said, "Yeah, I know." But then he surprised me. Then he went on to say that he was going to give me another chance to pass his class because he thought that I was smart and because he knew things hadn't been easy for me over the years. And that meant a lot to me. That meant everything to me. And it still does. Very small acts of empathy and encouragement can go a long way in the lives of others. I called him a few weeks ago to thank him, just in case I never had, and he said, "Calls like this make the whole damn thing worth it." and then he said, "It certainly isn't the money." He hasn't changed a lot. Yeah. Those who live with high levels of humility tend to have a powerful compassion for humanity. They value all life, and they understand that no one person is more or less important than anyone else. Over the course of my career as first a social worker and then a mental health researcher, I have interviewed and worked with some very vulnerable people. And I've noticed that they really seem to get this. They get this one, likely because they've been there and they can empathize. They know what it's like. When I lived in England, I did some research at an all-male correctional facility in England. And I interviewed male offenders about a variety of issues related to mental health and suicide and help seeking. And one of the take-home messages from the study was that the men did not want to seek help from their general practitioners, from their doctors when they were in distress, because they felt that they weren't respected are equally valued as human beings. And this article ended up being published in the British Medical Journal, which bewildered my colleagues and I because we thought it was too simple. But I think that this quote really demonstrates this idea that is having a common understanding that we are equally valuable and that we all want the same things in life, and treating others as such is a simple message, but it's one that's worth repeating. And this goes beyond value for humanity, because when you take the time to value all forms of life, including all things found in nature, you really do start to appreciate the beauty in everything. And you may even experience a state of awe. Awe is that emotional state when you experience something that is so overwhelming, so grand and beautiful that it changes your existing worldview or just your way of viewing things. And this isn't just some hippity-dippity nonsense. A study published just last year, in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that one pathway to humility is through this experience of awe. That is, when we feel awe, we feel that interconnectedness, that sense that we're part of something bigger. And it can be grounding. And this can be experienced in different contexts, such as nature, or art, or music, and even through being inspired by the love of feats of others. So if you want to cultivate more humility, just take more time to do more of whatever it is that moves you in life, because that's just one more thing to remind us that we really are all in it together. Last, those who live with a worldview of humility, they own up to their mistakes, right? They embrace their mistakes, past and present, and they stay open to the idea that there could just possibly be another way of looking at things, even after they've made up their mind. Now, this last one is very difficult for me, because once I've made up my mind about something, I rarely change it. But the times that I have been worth it, and it seems like the more I practice this one, the better I get. And part of this one involves sharing our mistakes and mishaps and struggles in life with others. Because when we do this, when we share our mistakes and flaws, we're by default giving others permission to do so as well. And in this self-obsessed culture, where we're all encouraged to hone our self-images down to a point of perfection, it's nice when people reveal their genuine selves, mishaps, mistakes, eccentricities, and all. We can incorporate more humility into our lives and resist this culture of competition and individualism. And by doing so, we can forge those meaningful and quality connections with others that we crave. And the beauty of living with a worldview of humility is that when we help others, we help ourselves. And so, as cliche as this acronym is, I'm going to stick with it, because ultimately humility is all about love. And as it goes, love heals all. Thank you.